Hi everyone, sorry I couldn't make it to class today. I hope you got the message before 8 o'clock. I'm just going to go over today's PowerPoint and some other stuff that I intended to cover today in class so that you're prepared for the next couple of weeks. Okay, so the plan for today was to do attendance, review learning logs, discuss writing techniques, cover quality assurance, and talk about what's due and what happens next week. So to cover the learning logs, reminder that they're due every week, every single Friday by 23:30, which is 11:30 p.m. So the learning log for week 1 was due last Friday at 11:30 p.m. There's still about 8 to 10 that are outstanding, so they're considered late. And anyone who submitted theirs after Friday at 11:30 was considered late. So that's marked on my grade book. They must be submitted in .doc or .docx format. I do not want PDFs, JPEGs, or Pages documents because I cannot provide, if I want to edit into your work and show you some changes, e.g. spelling changes, then I can't do that. So please submit in .doc or .docx. Plus, the other thing is that I can download them a little easier and open them. Okay, there is a template. All the templates for this class are provided in the course pack, which we looked at last week in class. So you need to use the correct template, which is the template in our course pack, not the practicum course pack. It discusses your workplace, name, the date, and your key learning, as well as a description of the experience. That's the one. Okay, if you need me to send it to you because you can't open the course kit or something to that nature, please let me know. In your description of experience section, you described what happened. So this is the section that should have the most detail. So you would say something to the effect of, last week in clinical, I had the opportunity to use a ceiling lift. The patient was unable to move around very well, was non-weight bearing, and the PSW assisted me, and it was a good experience, okay, or something like that. It doesn't need to be extremely lengthy, but a couple sentences to cover what it was that you learned. It doesn't also need to be an essay, okay? I'm reading 48 of these every single week, so please keep it concise, but with enough detail that I get a sense of what happened. In the key learning, you note the skills and knowledge that you gained. So with that experience, learned about transferring a patient, learned about communication, that sort of thing. This section should not have an essay in it. It should have like 2 sentences in it about what you learned. None of this should be in point form, but it should all be covered in each section. Like, don't repeat yourself over again, and don't tell me a new story in the key learning and different story in experience. They should be related. I did find a great deal of spelling mistakes in a lot of the learning logs this week, and I don't know why the spell checker on your programs aren't working or with this template. I would suggest that you open a new Word document and copy it, maybe type it out in there, and in each section copy and paste it onto the template. And the reason for this is, like, we're all adults here. We're talking about misspelled 3- and 4-letter words and blatantly misspelled words. So if you could just please read over your work before submitting it, it would help me out a lot. And it also demonstrates a certain degree of responsibility and I guess respect. The other thing to consider is that when you're nurses, your documentation is a legal document, and so you need to consider the importance of spelling now because it's going to affect your work in the future. Okay, and that's for all future assignments. You need to spell check or read it over. Just some general things about academic writing. Again, spell check, quite important. Make sure you're using appropriate grammar, so this relates to sentence structure and that sort of thing. When you write your reflective progress notes, I strongly recommend, and really with any course, I strongly recommend that once you've completed your assignment, you read it over out loud. And this can often introduce to you what what doesn't sound right, if there's a comma out of place or anything like that. That is when you hear yourself saying it that you'll often find issues with your writing. In your academic writing, I would suggest you avoid the use of the word you. You is the reader, which is me, and I didn't experience what you experienced. So when you're talking about something you experience, you're talking about it in the first person, which is I, me, mine. If you mean nurses in general, you talk about nurses experience burnout, or nurses experience patient care in this manner. Don't talk about we or us. It's I, or it's nurses, or whatever, patients or clients. It's not you. Okay, avoid contractions in your scholarly papers. This is contractions are it's anything with like a wasn't, couldn't, didn't. It should be did not, could not, cannot, that sort of thing. And then avoid starting a sentence with words such as also, but, and because all of those words indicate the continuation of an idea. An idea should be the start of a new sentence. There's also some issues with plural forms. So if it's patient apostrophe S, that means one patient. If you're talking about more than one patient, it's PATIENTS, no apostrophe. You can also get into the possessive plural, which is S apostrophe, but we'll not get into that right now because unfortunately I don't have the ability to show you on a blackboard how that works. But just be mindful of your appropriate use of plural words. And then for cites and sources, or APA, you need to follow the appropriate guidelines, which is in brackets author, comma, year, or author in brackets year. I don't need to know I don't need to know their initial in the citation, okay? And if it's not cited, you don't include it in your reference list. So if you haven't mentioned the author in your paper, then you don't mention the author on your reference list. And the same is true for the opposite. If you mention something in your paper, like the CNO or a certain author or Cozier or whatever, then you have to include a reference for that in your reference list. So I've already had a few reflective progress notes where that hasn't been the case. Okay. If you have any questions about your academic writing or academic writing issues, then post them on the discussion board, or if absolutely necessary, then you can email me. I'm not necessarily having an issue with my email so much as I'm getting a lot of emails with stuff that we've covered in class or I intend to cover. Okay. So today's topic was quality assurance, and quality assurance is the College of Nurses of Ontario's program that ensures that nurses maintain lifelong learning and continuing competence. It is necessary because in the medical field, knowledge and information is constantly changing, and as a nurse myself, I've been a nurse for 10 years, you tend to forget things if you don't practice them on a routine basis. So, for example, if you took an ECG course 10 years ago, probably, and you haven't used it, you're probably not going to remember that. So they want you to keep up with nursing knowledge, nursing information, and keep challenging yourself to learn about nursing and to improve your knowledge. And it's a requirement every year with the CNO. So every year you have to go onto the CNO website when you're registered, and you have to create a learning plan and have SMART goals and discuss how you intend to meet your goals. You don't have to prove that you met your goals. You just have to demonstrate that you intend to achieve certain goals each year. So, for example, for myself, I tend to take something through school once every semester online. So, for example, the last few semesters I've been working on critical care courses, so I tend to make my quality assurance learning plan about those courses and how I intend to earn my grade, or how I tend to complete that as part of my learning plan. So I recommend that you do the same. You don't have to take a course. You can also say that you're going to read certain legislation or certain care plans or certain CNO documents, certain RPNAO documents. They're all included. You don't have to prove like I took a course or something like that. You can attend a webinar sort of thing. So part of the initial quality assurance program involves completing a self-assessment. So in the self-assessment, you review your knowledge, your skill set, and your experience, as well as policy and practice changes. So they often require or request that you review a situation that you experienced or discuss something that changed at your workplace and how that's affected or changed your practice. If you get audited, they also request that you get peer feedback. So you can talk to your peers about what it is, where you are, and where they think you need to improve upon. Based on your learning plan and your SMART goals and your self-assessment. Base your learning plans on your self-assessment. So if you recognize that you have issues, let's say with communication or with starting IVs or with feeding patients, then these would be some of the things that you would focus your learning plan on. The self-assessment questionnaires, these are what the CNO requires you to answer when you are completing a self-assessment, and this again is done yearly. They want you to describe an experience, event, or change in your practice setting that was significant to you. So what happened and what was your role? So you're going to look back at your experience at the long-term care facility or at the hospital or wherever you work when you're a nurse and discuss something significant that happened or a practice changed. Based on what you described, what were your strengths and what were your areas of improvement? So you're going to look back and say, well, I was really good at discussing an initial assessment with a patient or an admission, but I was very, very much needed to improve upon communication when it came to the death of a patient. So maybe that would be your looking to explore palliative care and palliative communication. What input have you received from your peers about your practice? So this is where you would ask your peers, for examples of where your strengths and where your areas of improvement might be. And then finally, based on your knowledge, you have to determine what your learning needs are. So obviously we're not going to do this. Group work. So based on the CNO self-assessment, you're going to, in your learning plan, you're going to make SMART goals. SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-limited. There's a video here as well, a short 2-minute video if you would like to look, and it discusses the CNO's definition of SMART goals. So based on what the CNO has written about SMART goals, they have the following definitions. A SMART goal is specific, and so that means it's goal and detail oriented. It's focused and clearly stated. Those who are reading the goal should know exactly what you intend to achieve. So you want to make sure that your goal is not ambiguous and broad, because then it's challenging to determine what it is that you intend to achieve by the completion. Your goal must be measurable, so quantifiable. So then in that case, let's say 5 patients, you want to get 5 patients ambulating, or you want to insert 3 IVs, or you want to achieve an A+. Those are all measurable standards. Is it attainable? So do you have the ability to meet your goal based on your skills? So for example, an unattainable goal, which is I keep using for an example for some reason, is IV insertion, because you're not really at that stage yet, and to be honest, they don't teach IV insertion until you complete your nursing degree. Is it relevant? So is it applicable to your current role? So in this case, it has to be related to nursing practice. You wouldn't want to say, by December 5th, I would like to lose 15 pounds. Well, that's great, but it's got nothing to do with this program. And is it time limited? So you want to set timelines as to when you intend to achieve your goal. So we're talking about a certain date in most cases. So I'd like to achieve an A+ in anatomy and physiology class by April 5th, 2017, something to that degree. These are some examples that we were going to discuss in class and determine if these are SMART or not SMART goals. So I will successfully pass my anatomy midterm exam is not a SMART goal. And the reason for that is pass is a bit ambiguous. Are we talking about a 60%? Are we talking about 100%? There's also no timeline, which means we don't know when this midterm exam is happening. By February 1st, I will have successfully inserted a catheter using sterile technique. This is SMART for the most part. We do have the timeline met. It's specific, it's attainable, it's relevant, and the measurement is a bit ambiguous. It should say one catheter, not a catheter, or maybe it should say something like, I will successfully have catheterized a patient or one patient, so that the measurement is a bit more clear. I will practice the skills I learned in my lab class while in clinical during the semester. So this is very not SMART, because what skills are we referring to? When do you intend to complete them by? And you know, there's no specificity to this goal, there's no timeline, there's no measurability, so this wouldn't be considered a SMART goal. And finally, by April 5th, I will have successfully and accurately assessed the blood pressure of 5 residents in the long-term care setting. So this is specific. We're talking about blood pressure assessment. It's relevant, it's attainable, it's measurable, because we're talking about 5 residents, and it's time limited. Group work we're obviously not going to do, but this is something that you might want to look at when you have a spare minute, because I know you guys as students have so much spare time, haha. So developing your own SMART goal. So then the interactive review process in this course, which is a lot of what we're doing, is basically ensuring that you submit the documents that are required of you. And all of these would go into your online portfolio, okay? So these all have separate due dates, and we're just going to cover what they are right now again. And this is kind of to mimic what the CNO Quality Assurance Program is like. So the documents involved in this program include, or this course, the self-assessment, the learning log, peer feedback, your learning plan, practice reflection, portfolio development, learning evidence, and reflective notes. In this class, the work you complete for your portfolio is meant to be complementary to the work you complete in practice. So in addition to what you do in here, it's supposed to complement what you do in your placement. You will be asked to share your portfolio work with your instructor and your clinical instructor. So that's I'm your NPP instructor, and then your clinical instructor as well. So this ensures that you're not duplicating work, but also incorporating both what you learn in practice and what you learn in the classroom or online setting. So this is the self-assessment document that you will find in the template for this class, or excuse me, in the course pack for this class under templates, which are in the appendix. And so you will be reviewing and analyzing your practice, and you will be comparing your current practice using the 5 caring competencies. So in order to complete this, you will want to review the stages of progress in the professional practice manual, which is also in course information in the Blackboard for this course. So for each thing, you're going to talk about with regards to caring and competency, your areas of strength and your areas of improvement, and then go through each of the 5 competencies and tell me where you are weak and where you are strong, okay, what you intend to improve upon. The learning log is something that you've hopefully already submitted at least once, and this is due every week on Friday at 11:30 p.m., every week that you have class except for week 14, and it captures your weekly learning and progression in the nursing program. It's a way to track your growth and development. It reflects, you can discuss both your classroom learning and your clinical learning. So if you say, I didn't have class last week, so I don't have anything to write about, then you can talk about something you learned in class. And you're supposed to share it with both myself and your clinical instructor. Okay, so you'll see here that you write the date, you write the location, which is probably the same place every day unless you're talking about class. Or excuse me, unless you're talking about the in-class as opposed to your clinical. And this is where you'd write your brief description of the experience and your key learning. Okay, so these are the 4 columns that should be in your learning log. I've had some learning logs with completely different columns, so please ensure you are using this learning log for this class. And peer feedback, this is also due in our class, and this gives you an opportunity to get your peers' feedback on your practice. So when you're completing this, try and be a bit helpful to your peers and not just flatter them. I know you guys are probably all friends and that sort of thing, but there's really no benefit to just blatantly flattering each other. So try and suggest areas of improvement. Just a suggestion. But these are all due at some point, which will be reflected in your schedule. Your learning plan, another template in the course pack, identifies what you intend to focus on, and it should include some SMART goals, and it's based on your findings from the self and peer assessment. So if you say you need to improve on assisting patients with ambulation, that's something that you would write in your learning plan, is how you intend to achieve that. So don't focus on things that you said in your self-assessment that you're really good at. Your reflective progress notes, there's 3 due in this class. The first one is due on Friday, 2 days from now at 11:30 p.m. You need to use this template, and you need to use the Learn format. This should be submitted appropriately, which means double-spaced and APA. Please don't change the margins or the fonts. You should be typing everything with a 1-inch margin on each side, and you should be typing it in Times New Roman 12. That's just standard APA. So you're going to write the headings, look back, elaborate, etc., and then you're going to discuss an event. So for reflective progress note 2 and 3, you're going to discuss something in clinical. Reflective progress 1, which is due this week, which is a practice note. If you look in the course, the weekly learning on Blackboard, it says that you are intended to discuss something, intended to discuss how you intend to learn, improve, and that sort of thing in semester 2. So I've been getting a few reflective progress notes that are based on things that I guess happened previously. I don't know if they happened last week, but you're intended to talk about what is outlined on this our weekly learning from this week, okay, which is how you intend to grow as a nurse. The other thing I want to mention is that if you submit a learning or reflective progress note that you submitted last semester, that is considered plagiarism, so please don't do that. You need to have at least 1 reference in your reflective progress note, so that means 1 citation and 1 reference, and it has to apply to the situation you're discussing. Another thing I wanted to mention about references is that you need to make sure your reference fits what you're saying. So you wouldn't say, when I insert a catheter, I use sterile technique, and then cite your fundamentals of nursing, because you're talking about something that you did yourself, not something you took from your fundamentals of nursing. You could say something like, Using sterile technique to insert a catheter is necessary to prevent infections, and cite that and say that you use sterile technique. But you have to make sure that what you're citing is something that you're actually taking from the book, like an idea, not like a general principle, like is again, catheters, needs to be inserted sterile. Well, that's not something, if you say you did it, that's not something that you took from the book. Okay, so this again is the template in the appendix. Please use it. Please submit it to as a .doc or a .docx document to your online portfolio, and I will mark it as soon as I am able to do so. And it should be no longer than 2 pages double-spaced, with the third page can include only the reference for your citation. So the intention of portfolio development is for you to gather all of your knowledge and documents and have a database of what you've learned, okay? So when you are getting, I don't know if you've received this, but there's a package you get from the CNO, and it has a binder, and you're supposed to put all your learning plans and all your evidences and that sort of thing in there over the years. I think most of the time now people just do it online, or they save their evidence on computers. So, but this is the intention with all these documents that we're having you submit this year. So learning evidences with regards to your learning plan, they don't have to be, as I said, you don't have to complete a course. You can say that you watched a video, or you read a book, or you summarized a document, or you assisted something, but there has to be some kind of substantive evidence to demonstrate that you completed this. So if it was a webinar, did you get a certificate, that sort of thing. So again, at the end of this week on Friday at 11:30 p.m., you have to hand in or submit your reflective progress note, the first one, which is a practice document. I will be providing you with the rubric with whether or not you would have passed on it or not. Most of the reasons people would not have passed on it so far is failure to include the competencies. So you have to say that the reflective progress note applies to caring and competency, caring and connectedness, this sort of thing. You have to make sure that you have a reference. So I've had a couple without references, so they would have lost a mark there. I've had APA that is not APA, or major grammar and spelling issues, so that may be a lost mark again. There is a rubric in your course kit that you can look at, and will tell you very clearly what it is I'm looking for. Again, submit in .doc or .docx format. I will not be reading JPEGs or pages or PDFs because I can't provide any feedback on them. Your reflective progress note should be 2 pages double-spaced, as I said previously, with the exception of the reference, which goes on page 3 if you need to go page 3. If it's not 2 pages fully, that's not a big deal. It's a page and a half. As long as you meet the criteria, you're good. Must include one reference. All your work should be written in full sentences and not point form notes. You must follow the Learn format and reread and spell check your work before submission. If you sent the wrong format or something like that, and I can't open it, or you haven't used the template, or you submitted something completely, a learning log instead of a reflective progress note, then it's just not going to be read. So I will ask you to resubmit it. I, for example, got a reflective progress note in place of a learning log last week, and I didn't read it because you have to follow the instructions. So that's due Friday the 20th at 22:30. So it probably sounds like I'm beating a dead horse, but considering how many documents that were submitted late last week, I'm just wanting to remind you. In addition to that, you have a learning log due this week by Friday, January 20th at 22:30. And this is as I mentioned, there's a rubric that explains how to successfully pass a reflective progress note, and these are the criteria. You must have satisfactory on 4 of the 6 criteria, which are on the next slide. If you get unsatisfactory, it means that there's some kind of issue with at least 3 of the 4 issues. these are the criteria here. Again, this is also in your course pack, so you follow the learn format correctly. It shouldn't be up to me to determine if we're at look back, elaborate, new trial. You should write those clearly, those headings clearly. Headings are a part of academic writing, so just get used to writing the headings out. Your competency, caring and competency, so on, they need to be clearly stated as to what. You have to have 3 different learning notes and 3 different competencies noted. So you can put that at the top of your learning progress note or reflective progress note to say, this is in regards to caring and competency, or you can just say caring and competency and that's sufficient. Is it relevant to your current practicum experience? So something that has to do with your current placement. If you haven't been to placement yet, you can write about last placement, but as I mentioned, you can't resubmit a note from last placement. There should be at least 1 scholarly article or textbook article or CNO document included into your reflective progress note. It needs to be referenced and cited. And are you clearly reflecting and critically thinking? And is it clear that you understand and how you've grown from this situation? And then there's APA, so we're talking in text, citing appropriately, referencing appropriately, and spelling and grammar, which are both very important. So next week we're also online. I believe we're online for the next 3 weeks, not including this one. So I suppose 4 weeks in a row, because unfortunately I couldn't make it today. Next week there are assigned readings both in your textbook and on websites. There'll be a PowerPoint posted online if it's not already up. You need to complete that in the course kit on page 18 to 22. There's some questions regarding your reading. You need to complete these questions and select 2 and upload them to your online portfolio. So try and write your answers in your own words. Don't just copy and paste whatever's in the textbook. And then complete the CNO module on documentation. The link is provided on the week 3 Blackboard page. And just like the week 1 document regarding infection prevention and control, you can take a screenshot and submit that on your online portfolio. That screenshot, in addition to the 2 questions, in addition to your week 3 learning log and your self-assessment, are all due week 3 at 22:30. Okay, so everything due next Friday at 23:30. My only suggestion would be that when you go to clinical, I believe it's on Tuesdays, just go home and write your learning log right away, and at least that's one thing done. Self-assessment is pretty straightforward. You don't need to do any APA or anything like that. But all of these things, with the exception of the screenshot, need to be submitted as .docs or .docx. Don't copy and paste it into the screen. Just submit it so I can open it and then save it to my computer if need be, because sometimes I need to provide feedback. Okay? If you have any questions, please post. If it's something that maybe applies to everybody, then please post it on the discussion board. Otherwise, email me or text me and provide your name when you're going to text me. Okay? Thank you very much, and again, I apologize for not making it to class today.